Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Breaking Bet. The new year is upon us, 2025, first show of 2025. Apologies for the hiatus last weekend. I was in Florida, taking a little R&R, so we did miss last weekend. But I got my guy Eric Pauly here, ready to talk the final week of the NFL season. It's felt like it's been forever, while it's also felt like it's been 2 minutes. But Eric, I'm glad you're here to be able to help me break this last week down.
Yeah, I feel like this last week it's more talking about, probably some of these awards markets, talk about some of the matchups that are going to happen in the first round of the playoffs as, the NFC is mostly set. They have some big games. The AFC should be set, though. Obviously, nonsense can always happen. So, no, I think that heading into the playoffs, now, even if we're not telling you, what to bet for Week 18, though we will have some for that, like just giving you kind of our thoughts on what to prepare for. So I'm sure these lines are going to move pretty quickly once they open up when these playoff matchups come out. So hopefully give you guys some game, and then we'll talk, some of those games in detail next week. But just feels like another week of preseason, except at the end of the season, right, Johnny?
Yeah. So for everybody, I texted Eric today. I'm like, all right, let's get a show. Let's get a quick one. I know there's a lot of stuff that it's hard to handicap when you have teams sitting out. You have Kansas City came out and said that they're going to rest all their starters. You have Philly coming out basically said they're probably going to rest most of their starters. A couple other teams. So it's hard to really, pin down what a fair number is, and you're having to guess with backups who haven't gotten much time. So those are the kind of matchups that we stayed away from. Pretty much only things with teams trying to get in the playoffs did we really, bear down. So there's not going to be that many games, but, throw in the comments if you want an opinion on a game that we didn't talk about. We could definitely give you some advice there. But, before we get started on the games themselves, I had something that has really been bothering me the last few days, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. I value your opinion, and we do a lot of disagreeing on the show. You might agree with me. You might not. And I had skin in this, so I am upset, but I'm upset for just being a fan of the NFL. Do you agree with the Eagles' decision probably to sit Saquon Barkley and not let him go get that rushing record where he was 101 yards away from being the all-time single-season rush leader in the NFL?
Thing is, I don't think Saquon probably cares, right? So I don't think it matters. Like, I understand as like a fan, you want to see him break the record. Obviously the season's been incredible. You're still going to have the people putting that asterisk next to it regardless because of the fact that there's the 17 games versus the 16 games. I don't know if Saquon said anything publicly, so I don't want to just be making things up because he, could be on board the decision, could not be on board. If I had to guess, I don't think he'd give a fuck, honestly. I think that he'd rather be on an Eagles team, rest up, and go win a Super Bowl based on the losing he's done with the New York Giants since he's been drafted, rather than, okay, I need this rushing record. I can't guarantee anything. If you ask Saquon Barkley to his face, would you rather have more, the rushing record or Super Bowl title for the year 2025? I think he'd say Super Bowl title. I don't know if that's true, but I don't think that he is pissed off about it. I would bet that he's not pissed off about it.
So I saw an interview with him. He was being asked about it. He said the typical, I'm all about the team speech, and that's fine, and I believe him. But you could, at least for me, I interpreted it as he was disappointed. He wanted to go get it. I think, and I can't confirm this, but I think I heard something about his father wanted him to get it as well. Listen, I know Saquon Barkley's not going to probably come out publicly and say, no, I want the record. Because he's gonna come off as a me first guy, even though I don't think he is. That's just not what we're hearing about the situation. But I'm gonna say this: yes, I've put in a couple MVP tickets, futures, parlayed with some other stuff the last couple weeks, just off the thought that, all right, if he breaks the record, he's probably gonna have to win the MVP. It would be absurd for him to not get it. And whether that's true or not, that's why I put some Saquon MVP futures in. So I'm upset because that basically busts any ticket I have with Barkley as an MVP. But I'm disappointed, and I don't agree with it. you have a guy who can do something that has not been done in over 40 years. This is a record that's been standing for 4 decades, and you're not going to give the guy a chance. And let's be honest here. Against Dallas, they were blowing them out. Nick Sirianni, as soon as he hit 2,000 yards, he pulls them. There was a lot of time left in that game. He could have gave Barkley another drive, give him a couple more carries, maybe cut into that 101-yard deficit a little bit more, maybe get him down to 80 yards left. Because here's why. I personally do not agree with resting all your starters for the whole week next week. If you're Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, who's not going to play, is not going to have played for a month and then just show up in the wild card round, which they could play Green Bay or Washington, which can be a tough matchup. So you're going to have an offense led by Jalen Hurts, who hasn't played in a month. Saquon Barkley, I get you want to rest him, but I mean, he can handle 15 carries in the first half just to make sure he's not losing too much rust. And listen, I personally think anybody saying, well, it's a 17th game, I agree with you. Because when the league first said, hey, we're pushing this to 17 games a few years ago, I'm like, well, all these records that could be broken are going to have an asterisk next to it. There's been people that have been bringing it up, where it's like, well, yeah, they're playing with a 17th game. But to this point, Eric Dickerson has like 34 more carries than Barkley did through the 16 games. So really, even though Barkley's going to get the extra game, he's not going to get as many carries. And however you take that, fine. That is truly an opinion thing. But I don't agree with them sitting Saquon Barkley. And
I understand why.
I could see Nick Sirianni leading everybody on. Was like, oh, we're probably going to rest some key starters, and then he just pulls the wall over everybody's eyes. It's like, nah, sorry, we're just kidding. Barkley's going to go play the first half and get it. But yeah, I'm upset about it, to be honest. I wanted to see Barkley get this record.
Yeah, and I understandably so. I see both sides, and again, I think that if you all that history there, can never be taken away. If Saquon Barkley wins a Super Bowl, I think he'll smile, and the Eagles are certainly poised to win a Super Bowl. So we can talk about that in a little bit more detail, especially, of course, next week when we do some previews. But I think if it ends up being for the better of the team, like because Hurts has come off a concussion, right? Quarterbacks historically off a concussion their first game play like crap. So yes, it's like still a tune-up game for them, and I feel you with I don't agree with having too much rest. Also, that could be a net negative, but I don't think there's a point of having Saquon. I mean, Jalen Hurts play this week when he's coming off concussion. He's a guy who needs that extra rest. I think that would actually be beneficial because the game he's playing off his concussion, his first game. If he could have played this week, but then plays in 2 weeks, I think that is a net positive. But in general, I do agree with you that resting too much is probably a net negative for the unquantifiable momentum and all those kinds of things.
And one thing I will say is everyone's like, well, he could get hurt. Of course he could get hurt. But at the same time, what happens if Philadelphia goes into the first round and they get bounced and you deprive Barkley a chance of history? And, there may not be a guy in the next 10 years, 20 years that even comes close to breaking Edie's record. So, definitely a debate there. And you know what? That's why I have so much love for Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell in a meaningless game against the 49ers on Monday, he went balls to the wall for the win. And, we're talking about rest and rust, but that boosts morale. They win the game. They go play hard. They're carrying momentum. Whereas you're playing this whole time where it's like, okay, well, this game doesn't mean anything, so we're going to relax and take it easy. You take your foot off the gas. That's mental. That's more mental than anything. So you relax mentally. Now you got to turn it back on, as opposed to, what's easier, going 60 and accelerating, or going 60, stopping, and then trying to get back to 60. So I love that Dan Campbell did that. And we're going to get to that Lions game in a little bit, E, but talk to me here about this MVP candidacy. Josh Allen is currently the big favorite at -350. Then it's Lamar. Then it's Burrow, and Barkley, presumably not playing, is going to be done. It's really Lamar versus Josh Allen. Where are you going here?
So I think that Joe Burrow, there's no shot in hell. It's a fun story. He's played amazing. He's an amazing football player. He's probably going to win comeback player of the year, which we're going to touch on. He's not winning 2 awards, right? He's not winning comeback of the year to win the MVP. I think what we could do for this, Johnny, is talk about what we think is going to happen versus what we think should happen, because those are probably not going to align. Because after looking at everything, I think the MVP of the league is Lamar Jackson. That being said, Josh Allen is winning the MVP award. Like, you want to talk about like propaganda when it comes to like politics and elections. This is the same exact thing. Like, Josh Allen is literally getting promoted and having these propaganda pieces created around him on why he should win the award. And Lamar's season is just better. Lamar is on another level. And I hate the arguments of like, Lamar has a better supporting cast and let Derrick Henry run. Like, can you argue that that's true? Like, yes, you have one of the best running backs of our generation that helps your team. But the Bills created addition by subtraction. They purposely let these players go on the offensive side of the ball to have this more spread out offense with the players that they do have, and basically have Josh Allen just running the show. So with that being said, Josh Allen's season has been amazing. I think that the disrespect toward Lamar is still somehow apparent. Like, the guy is absolutely balling. But I think the voter fatigue at the end of the day is going to set in and be the difference. We're going to see a very close race. But I think these voters, especially kind of given the media narratives that are like, okay, I really think it's 50-50, which is understandable to think that, they're going to be like, well, Lamar's won too. Josh has got his fire with the second seed and kind of make their case. But if you want to talk numbers for numbers, best player in the NFL at points going, like, Lamar has better numbers. And he's beaten some of these other great teams as well. And he does it also on prime time most of the time as well. Like, he's having a crazy season. I think it is a tomato, but I think Josh is going to win. But if I had to vote, I'd vote for Lamar. And I think that could even be strengthened with this game on Sunday. On Saturday, they're playing. So Saturday.
I got to say, I'm so sick and tired of these awards, especially the MVP. It's so politicized. It's become so stale. I think they need to really juice it up in the future, because it's ridiculous. It's so narrative driven, and they just want to create a story. And to be honest, I think you could realistically give MVP to Saquon Barkley, honestly, like in real football. I know he's not going to win the award in real football, but it's like, at the end of the day, and I know this has been said for many years, I think we need to can the MVP and just create QBs to have their own award. Most valuable quarterback is what it is. And I know everyone said, well, that's what offensive player of the year is for. But yeah, but a quarterback can still win offensive player of the year. So I don't like that it's always a quarterback winning the MVP. But here's what I'll say. Lamar Jackson statistically had a great year, no doubt. And I will illustrate the point where he's got Derrick Henry, who's one of the best running backs of generation. The yards after the catch his receivers have had is some of the best in the NFL. The yards of separation all year his receivers have is one of the best in the NFL. And I know everyone's like, well, Lamar moves, he creates separation, blah, blah, blah. Still, Lamar's had a lot more help on offense than Josh Allen has. Numbers-wise, of course, statistically, yeah, they blow it away. But if statistical mattered all that, like, as the only thing, then Joe Burrow would be the best quarterback in the NFL this year and win MVP. But you factor in team success, Josh Allen has the blend of numbers and team success. He's the number 2 seed. He went into Detroit and beat the number 1 Lions. He is the only team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. He's put up numbers with his best weapon being James Cook, who's barely going to scratch over 1,000 yards. The guy has answered the bell, and that I said preseason I didn't buy the Bills. I thought their window was closed. I didn't think Josh Allen was going to have a great year. I was wrong about that. And this guy has been dealing with a lot of criticisms with people like me who said, no, this wasn't going to be Josh Allen this year. It was done. Stephon Diggs, he leaves. Where is he going to put up these numbers? The big factor, of course, is because Lamar got handed a Make-A-Wish MVP last year with having less than 30 total touchdowns, which, by the way, was the first time a quarterback won MVP with less than 30 total touchdowns since 2008 Peyton Manning, which 2008 was a much different time in football. He won an award when Josh Allen had 45 total scores. So, I've been hearing a lot about, well, Lamar's numbers are off the charts. They are, but where was this argument last year when Allen had off-the-chart numbers and Lamar didn't? More importantly, Allen locked up the 2 seed, which historically QB of the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC or NFC is usually the winner of the award. Personally, if I had a vote, I would vote for Josh Allen. It's not just because he hasn't got one yet. I would say if Allen won it last year, then I would give the vote to Lamar.
Yep.
Because everyone's like, well, the numbers, they're moving the goalposts. Well, his numbers are so great. Well, what about last year? He didn't have any numbers. This year he does, but Allen's had the team success. Well, last year Lamar had the team success. So which is it? I think it's Josh Allen. If I had a vote, I'm going Josh Allen here.
No, again, I think Josh Allen will win the award. So I'm on the same page. And like you just ended off with, like, because of some of these, flipping of who won last year, like, voter fatigue is real. And all sports with votes is a real thing. And I think, again, because of that fatigue, people that are on the fence will vote for Josh if they already had voted for Lamar, and that's going to be the difference. But I think Josh Allen definitely deservingly wins an MVP this year, and I can see the argument for both. But I'm not upset about Josh Allen winning an MVP, though. The propaganda train is definitely working overtime for our boy in Buffalo.
Well, that's what they do, don't they? That is absolutely what they do. It's one of the most hype-driven awards in sports. I'm gonna save the Coach of the Year one until we do the Lions Vikings, because that ties in perfectly to that motif. But the second to last award I want to talk about is the Comeback Player of the Year. So Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold, J.K. Dobbins, great story. J.K. Dobbins, big fan of Dobby, big incubator guy in fantasy. Had him his rookie year. Love to see that he's come back from these injuries. He's on a playoff team, and maybe they have a chance to win a game or two. I don't think Dobbins is winning. So it's Darnold versus Burrow. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because the conflicting reports since the summer on this award is outrageous. And anybody that doesn't know, first it was, all right, well, Sam Darnold, based on the new rules, is not eligible. No, they saw what happened with Geno Smith and Joe Flacco. You can't come back from basically sucking or being non-existent and winning the award, because I guess people were tired of it. So Sam Darnold, that story came out in the summer, which basically pointed to him. But people were betting the shit out of him the first 6 weeks. And then a story from the summer resurfaced, and everybody stopped betting him. And Sam Darnold basically became an off-the-board number. And that stayed like that for a month. And then people started betting Darnold again all of a sudden. And up until like 10 days ago, Sam Darnold for Comeback Player of the Year wasn't really in play. But then, but somehow people started betting him in this last week and a half, where he's become not only in play but a potential winner. And our good friends Nick Kostos and Femi from You Better You Bet spoke with I'm sorry, I apologize for the name, but spoke with somebody from AP, Associated Press, who said Darnold votes would be counted. So here we are. Sam Darnold is now picked up so much steam to be giving Joe Burrow a run for his money on the number. Are you giving Burrow the award or Darnold?
I'm giving Burrow the award 100%. Like, the award is for somebody who got hurt and then came back and won. Like, again, I understand there's all this like gray area now, what actually is true for like voters. And we've seen the odds move, we've seen the reports go, but no, Joe Burrow is having an MVP season and his team just sucks. And it's unfortunate. Like, Joe Burrow had a season-ending injury last year, and now he came back and is playing MVP level football. If the award is like we said it's supposed to be, where it doesn't matter, it's not the Comeback Player of the Year as in come back from being a backup or being a shitty player. It's come back from a major injury designation, a crazy life event. It's not you stunk or you couldn't find your right team, now you found your right team. What Sam Darnold has done is absolutely nothing short of amazing. He has so much help in certain areas, of course, though, with receiver core, as Burrow does too. Some great offensive coaching as well. But we're talking about one of the better quarterback seasons like that we've seen of recent memory with Joe Burrow, having MVP talks versus a very good Sam Darnold season, who doesn't even technically, check the boxes that the award has changed the boxes you need to check. And Joe Burrow has all those checked and it's better numbers. So I think this price is actually short on Burrow, even at -210.
Like your opinion with the MVP, I'm going to say who I think is going to win versus who should win. Joe Burrow played 10 games last year. It wasn't like a catastrophic injury like he came back from in 2020 when he
was hurt though coming into the season too. Like he was playing hobbled the first couple weeks.
I know, I remember. So Joe Burrow won this in 2021 after he recovered from a torn ACL in his rookie year. The thing is, Joe Burrow has played so well this year. He's been the best quarterback in football. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, this is a guy that if he has 360 pass yards is going to be 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns this year. But because his defense is disgustingly bad and his kicker can't make a field goal to save his life, they're not going to make the playoffs most likely. I think he should come away with something. Like, you can't have this good of a season and come away with 0. And I think if Saquon Barkley hadn't been a 2,000-yard rusher, then we realistically might be seeing Joe Burrow win Offensive Player of the Year. I think Burrow should win it just because it'd be a tragedy to see him get nothing. But based on the steam that we're seeing, especially if the Bengals don't make the playoffs, I feel like they're going to give it to Sam Darnold. This steam coming in from people who thought maybe the number was wrong a couple weeks ago, or twisting their own narrative. This is the only narrative. This is the only award in sports where you can truly make up your own narrative, because the criteria around this award is so loose. There's realistically no concrete definition. It is the hardest award in sports to bet, because writers can just make up what they want and they can be influenced by other members of the media. Of course they could do that with every other award, but this is one where it's so subjective. So I think they're going to end up giving it to Darnold, even though I would vote for Burrow. Like, if I had a vote, I would give it to Burrow, because I think Darnold's going to ultimately end up winning, especially if the Vikings win this weekend and they win the 1 seed. I think they'll probably give it to Darnold. I've taken some Darnold comeback player of the year in a couple small futures parlays, dart throws. All right. So week 18 favorite looks. I know we're not going through the whole slate, so let's get started with the Chargers Raiders. The Bolts are in the playoffs. It's been a few years since they've been in, but Jim Harbaugh, man, tons of credit. He came in and turned the ship around. I wasn't a big believer in the Bolts year 1 right away. Justin Herbert played arguably the best year of football he's ever played at, even if his stats don't reflect it. They are 4.5-point favorites at Vegas with a very low 40.5-point total. Are you laying the 4.5 with the Bolts?
No, so I think the Bolts are one of those teams that are live to lose outright, just due to lack of, taking the game as seriously as they need to. So this is an important nugget. So first of all, the spread has come down big time. I think it opened at as close to 5.5. It was in that reverse Roman spot you love there, Johnny, but now it's even down to LAC -4. I was looking at these scenarios, and I think it's just based on how the things play out. So if the Ravens beat the Browns, the Ravens win the AFC North. If the Steelers beat the Bengals, then the Bengals are eliminated, but the Steelers, I don't think that it then changes the outlook for the Chargers.
They lock up the 5. If the Steelers win, they lock up the 5.
Steelers win, they lock up the 5. So at that point, the Chargers have if I'm not mistaken, have the head-to-head over the Denver with the 2 wins, but I don't know when the conference games come in. But I think there's a very great possibility that the Chargers, because they'll know their fate before the game, could be like benching Justin Herbert or resting him for the second half and putting those things out publicly. And I think that a Raiders team that, they're trying to put on some tape. Obviously, Antonio Pierce and his crew it's over. But I think you have a chance where you're going to get a motivated Raiders backup squad versus an LA team that's just kind of dialing it in, getting ready for their playoff berth. So I think there actually is some value with the home underdog and the Raiders there.
Yeah, it's a good point you mentioned, because all the AFC North teams play each other on Saturday. So a lot of information will be known to everybody, including players and teams, of what they need. Like, for instance, if the Steelers win on Saturday, the Chargers can't go anywhere but the 6th seed because, I'm actually not sure what the story with the Broncos is, because the Broncos are 9-7. But to tell you the truth, if I'm the Chargers, I think I'd probably rather go to Buffalo than Baltimore. So, their effort level might depend on if the Steelers win or lose. So I would probably hold off to see what the result is before I ever get involved. But that's something that obviously you won't know until Saturday night. Sorry. Carolina at Atlanta. The Falcons are 7.5-point favorites. They need to win, and they need the Bucks, who are 2-touchdown favorites against New Orleans, to lose to clinch the NFC South. I'm not celebrating just yet, E. My Tampa Bay to win the NFC South preseason future looking very good. Atlanta laying 7.5 at this point against Carolina. And I know favorites have been going nuts these last 2 weeks. Like, the favorites have been cleaning up. I was on Carolina last week at Tampa with 8.5. I thought the Panthers were competitive in the first half, but then they kind of got away from them. Do you think it's a similar case here, or do you think the Panthers, with jobs on the line next year, keep this one closer?
I like the over, honestly. I've been thinking about the spread here. I think that we just see a barrage of points. We have two horrible defenses. Like the Panthers, we've talked to nausea about their little against the spread run. Then they finally ran into some buzzsaws, and we're reminded how bad this team truly is. Still a horrible team. And this Atlanta offense, I know with Penix, like he missed a couple of throws against Washington. Like that game could be very different if he was a little bit more on target. It's the second start, not making any declarations about Penix, but I think the Falcons' offense, especially with Bijan, like they are a well-oiled machine, and their defense stinks. So you have average offense in Carolina, it's a terrible defense against good offense and a bad defense. The Panthers are going to be pulling out all the stops. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some, fake punts or just some, hyper-aggressive fourth down kind of conversions, just playing for, their pride at this point. And also, like, I think some of these teams, I know that the Panthers, if they win, they're helping another divisional team. So they're playing spoiler to one divisional rival, not, trying to help out some random team in their conference. But I think that the Panthers are going to be, giving an A effort. I think that the Falcons can move the football on this horrible Panthers defense, and the element of, Penix provides, a nice new dynamic to this Falcons offense to make these playmakers that we know they have kind of churn more. And the Panthers, they've shown that they could score on some teams. I think even if we get, again, like a Falcons, 31-point output, I think the Panthers are definitely live for 17-20 to push it over, even though it's a high total. So I think we could see some fireworks in this final game in beautiful conditions in the Dome in Atlanta. Like I actually like the over here.
Yeah, I like everything you said. I think, reasonably seeing Carolina score 20 to 23 points is fair. And I think with the way Atlanta's sense of urgency, or should be sense of urgency, would kick in, you could see Atlanta score 26 plus. So definitely would be a good success, good recipe for success for the over. So I do like that. I'm probably going to lay off a lot this week. I'm kind of gearing up for the playoffs. Maybe throw a little something here or there in. I'm going to save a lot of juice for Sunday night, though. But before Sunday night is Saturday night. Cincinnati, 1.5 fave at Pittsburgh. Little revenge spot. Of course, both teams, quote unquote, need this game. The Steelers for seeding purposes. Big difference between having to go to Houston round one versus having to go to Baltimore for the rubber match. Cincinnati, obviously, to keep the sliver of hope for them to go to the playoffs, they need to win this game. For Cincinnati to make it to the postseason, they have to win. The Broncos at 10.5-point favorites against Carson Wentz and all backups. KC has to lose, and they need Miami to lose at the Jets. Cincinnati has to take care of business above all else. I'm going to say I think they come ready to play. I'm going to back the Cincinnati Bengals. Listen, man, I know their defense is bad. It's been playing somewhat better as of late. Not great, but somewhat serviceable. I just think Joe Burrow is going to keep doing his thing, and with everything on the line, just let it rip and, put up enough points to ultimately get his team in a position to be rooting on Sunday for a couple teams to lose.
So it's interesting, though, because the Ravens play first. So the Steelers know their destiny before this game even kicks off. So I think, you would maybe anticipate, Mike Tomlin taking the foot off the gas a little bit, because it's not like they can do anything about the fact that, the Ravens are going to take over that, the AFC North. But I just don't. I think the Steelers are live, right? I think that I agree with the fact that the Bengals are out to give their best effort. The Steelers are too. I think regardless of if the Ravens, which are probably going to win their 2020 favorites, regardless if the Ravens win on that 4:30 game Saturday, I think the Steelers are still giving out their max effort to try to go into the playoffs on a high note. And I think that they're just still a tough matchup for the Bengals. I know the Bengals have been one of those teams in the AFC North that has kind of avoided the Mike Tomlin voodoo the past couple of years. Joe Burrow has been a little impervious, but in Pittsburgh is always tough. Makes environments for special teams kicking things that we've talked about the Bengals struggling with a lot more difficult. Steelers are still a good football team. I think we're getting to the point now where the Steelers, Russ comes in hot. They're getting overvalued. Then now, after losing a little bit, they're getting undervalued. So I actually think the Steelers are live here. And I don't think this needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. Just because a team needs to win, as we saw last week with the Colts, doesn't mean they're going to win a football game, let alone cover a number, right? So I just think that this number is a little short. This was a 1.5 point spread the last time they played. Now it's in Pittsburgh. I think that the Steelers are certainly live in this situation, honestly. And I don't think that there's going to be a spot where even when the Ravens win, that they're going to be okay, let's tone it back and just kind of rest into next week. No, I think they give a full forced effort. And I think they want to keep their rival out of the playoffs. So I think the Steelers are more than alive here. And I think that there's everyone wants to see the Joe Burrow story that comes to fruition, come back into it and hopefully it works out. But life's not a storybook, Johnny. I think Russell Wilson might be the guy to play the villain here. I kind of like the Steelers.
I like it. You think everybody's going to be on Cincinnati, and let's go the other way. I mean, the Steelers have lost 3 straight. They haven't looked particularly good. I mean, they lost by 2 touchdowns to Philly. They lost by 3 possessions to the Ravens. They lost by 19 to the Chiefs. This stretch of December has been brutal for them. So maybe they do get it together here. I mean, obviously having no George Pickens has been a detriment to them. But maybe, I mean, definitely possible. Last game, which really is the only game I care about, is the Vikings-Lions, my preseason Super Bowl pick, Detroit Lions. This is Detroit all day for me. Waited all year for this. I love the Lions coming into the season. I felt like they were the best team, not only in the NFC, but the NFL. Minnesota, good for you. Seriously, big ups. Kevin O'Connell's had an unreal season. He's turned Sam Darnold's career around. Brian Flores has had a renaissance, coaching up a fantastic defense pretty much every week. They've had some big upsets, especially early in the year. They dismantled Houston. They dismantled San Francisco. They beat Green Bay. They took Detroit down to the wire, the first meeting. So you know what, man? In all seriousness, great job by the Minnesota Vikings. But I can't jump ship now. I think the Lions win this game. I think they cover. I think they get the 1 seed. And I can't back down now.
No, I feel the only thing I'm more interested about this, considering the that I have and just the market being more interesting, Coach of the Year. Do you think that the Lions, say they win by 3, is that swaying you all the way to Dan Campbell to definitively win that award? Or do you think it would have to be a Lions blowout?
No. I think this is just my opinion. Kevin O'Connell has done a fantastic job. And everyone's like, well, Kevin O'Connell's got Sam Darnold. He turned his season around. Their projected win total was what? They're expected to win 6 games, 7 games. Look how many they won. They've won 14 games. Absolutely no doubt. No question. Kevin O'Connell is deserving. I have no issues with it. Except for the fact is, I thought the last few weeks, the winner of this division, which will be the 1 seed, gets the award. How are you not going to give the award to Dan Campbell if the Lions win? Yeah, they're projected 10.5 wins, but they'd win 15 games. That's a significant amount of games more than they were expected to win. He's had to overcome so many injuries. Almost every key player on his defense has gotten hurt this year. He lost David Montgomery for 3 weeks. I mean, the fact is, The only reason why this has become even a race is because the Lions lost to the Bills. They lost like Jared Goff basically getting slashed from the MVP race was because they lost to the Bills. Dan Campbell getting slashed in the Coach of the Year market was because they lost to the Bills. Now, quite frankly, if the Lions sweep the Vikings in the regular season, they win 15 games, they get the number 1 seed. How do you not give it to Dan Campbell? The media loves this guy. He hasn't won one yet. They've been dying to give him an award. And I know Kevin O'Connell deserves it, but I think I would give it to Dan Campbell more. And the fact of the matter is, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, this number has been so out of whack. Kevin O'Connell was like minus 1,700 at one point. That doesn't make any sense. Like Dan Campbell was 9-1 a couple weeks ago. And as you can see, he's 6.5-1, which is still way too big. For me, this is a coin flip. I don't know how you don't give the number 1 seed 15-2 team the Coach of the Year award.
No, I don't have really any rebuttals because, like we've talked about, one of the biggest things being the overachieving aspect. And yes, having a 10-5 win total but winning 15 games is 100% overachieving, right? Like there's no make no mistake about that. I don't think though, because we talk about the losses for the Lions, but if you look about who the Vikings lost to, these Lions in the tight game, and the Packers, who were another Super Bowl contender, right? So the losses are just as impressive when we're talking about losses. That being said, I don't think, and maybe there's some bias here because I obviously have equity in Kevin O'Connell. It's something I want more than Kevin O'Connell to win this award. But I don't think it's as much of a coin flip. I think if the Vikings lose this game by 3 points, Kevin O'Connell still deserves it. If the Lions come out and beat the Vikings by 21 points, then I don't think it's a question that it goes to Dan Campbell. So on that note, I think these odds are a little bit off and that there definitely is value at Dan Campbell at this point. And honestly, I should probably consider putting in a hedge of some sort just because 20-1 tickets, that's a pretty good amount. And that could definitely secure, a nice chunk of change. But I don't think that – I agree that, and the propaganda train, like Dan Campbell has more general clout, general love, and the people would like to see Dan Campbell win it more. I agree with all those things. But I think that the Vikings story is a little bit more compelling. And they're both – amazing, awesome stories, but talking about 6.5 win team, everybody wrote off win total to win 14. All these stories with the offense and Sam Darnold and the historicals of the overachieving, the non-playoff team. Because again, obviously the Vikings win it, it's over, which we know. But I think it would take a Lions masterclass versus just like a crazy game Detroit win to really shift this entirely in the other direction.
I think a season sweep, I know they played them close the first time, but a season sweep, I mean, it's synonymous with he wins the award. He beat the opposing head coach twice, and he's doing it with a much more limited roster than what he had the first go around.
I think if you're talking in this matchup, yes, much more limited, but
yes,
obviously from a general perspective, calling the Vikings who were expected, and the expectation is a massive thing too, right? That's another thing that can't be discounted because that's what voters have voted on historically. This is even a bias. It's just voters have bet historically on the guys who are overachieving at crazy levels. It is unique that Dan Campbell still has a 10.5 win total team overachieving. So it definitely should be closer than this, though. I do agree with you.
Yeah, and listen, so here's my logic behind it, and that's kind of why I tie it to Sam Darnold winning Comeback Player of the Year, because they're going to want to give the Vikings something. But Dan Campbell, again, all the 15-2, the one, and this is hypothetically if the Lions were to win, they'd be 15-2, 1 seed overcoming a lot of injuries. Media loves Dan Campbell, propaganda. I mean, he's a sick maniac, but he did the right thing, in my opinion. We talked about it earlier in the show. He played his guys, and he played hard against the 49ers to win that game, keep morale, keep momentum. Like the media loves that. They eat that up, and it worked. If it didn't work, there's okay, this guy's an asshole, but it worked. Or it's wow, I love this guy. I'm gonna play for this guy. But I think Sam Darnold winning Comeback Player of the Year is all right, well, we give the Vikings something. So I think that's why I probably think Sam Darnold wins comeback player of the year. So comeback player of the year. If the Vikings win this game, I think Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold are coming away with awards. If the Lions win, I think it's probably Dan Campbell and still likely Sam Darnold, unless somehow the Bengals make the playoffs. That's just my personal opinion. I haven't talked to anybody. That's just based on the way I'm seeing it, and it could be wrong. But for whatever side you agree, I think we both agree this number should be a lot closer. I mean, maybe you don't think it's a coin flip, but I think it's something along the lines of a coin flip, considering the Lions are actually favored to win this game. 2.5 point spread, but so that's why it should be closer. All right, before we get out of here, I know, Eric, we wanted to talk about some rest of the season picture. What are you looking at in terms of teams that you might like that are outside the top 6? Are you looking at a long shot? Do you like a team to win the conference, Super Bowl? Anything that you're looking at for the rest of the way?
Yeah, so I have the Eagles-Chiefs ticket. That's been what I've been saying since August. So I'm riding Eagles-Chiefs to win the conferences, their respective conferences. The one thing that I already know I'm targeting, and obviously it's going to be number dependent because it really is so high. This is kind of a moot point, but whatever the hell the total is in Rams Commanders or Buccaneers Commanders, if that is the matchup, one of those two, and the Commies don't blow this game to Dallas and have to face the Eagles, I'm betting over. Anything under 54 between Commies Rams or Commies Bucks. If the Commies play the Bucks or the Rams and don't play the Eagles in the first round, the second those lines come out, assuming the total is under 54 points, I'm betting the over in that game. I'm looking immediately toward the over in whoever Washington is playing the first round, especially if it is the Bucks or the Rams. I don't see either of those teams stopping either one of those teams, and I think those games will be absolute shootouts. So rest of the season, I think that for this first round when those come out, because obviously we won't have a show before those lines are out. Those lines will be out, as early as Sunday midnight, realistically, or even earlier, depending on how other things shake out. I'm looking to bet the Commies, Bucks or Commies Rams over. But I think the NFC is just so unique, Johnny, because it's it really is a year where every team in the NFC can win.
It's wide open. Yeah, I completely agree. Which is also why I think for me personally, I don't understand the Rams. This is another team that just is coming out and sitting their guys, and I don't get it. Because for anybody wondering, if the Rams lose, which they're going to lose, presumably, against the Seahawks this weekend, and Tampa Bay, who's a 14-point favorite against New Orleans, wins, they're the 3 seed. And that's significant because the 3 seed is either going to play Washington or Green Bay, whoever of those two teams dukes it out, which is a much, much easier path than having to play the Lions or the Vikings. A 14-win team is going to travel to LA because LA decided to sit their guys. I don't understand it. Forget the rest versus rust. If whatever you believe, the matchup in Wild Card Weekend, why would the Rams open themselves up to that? I think personally, yes, they can beat either of those teams. We said it. The NFC is wide open, but why would you not go try and take the easier matchup of the Packers or the Washington Commanders? So Tampa Bay, in that regard, I took a ticket on Tampa and the Rams a month ago, both to win the NFC. And another reason why I want the Lions to get the 1 seed is because Lions, Eagles, Bucks, Rams, I have something involved on all of them to either win the NFC or win the Super Bowl. So in the divisional round, all 4 of those teams in some format would play each other. So 2 of them would advance, and then 1 of them would advance out of the championship round. But I got to be honest, bro. Look out for Tampa. I am feeling Tampa as a dangerous threat because say for instance that Tampa does get this 3 seed, which is very, very possible, and they end up playing Washington, right? Let's say they play Washington. I like them to beat Washington again at home. I know it's a much different team than they played in week one, obviously. But if they beat them, presumably they're going to have a relatively solid matchup in the next round, with even if it's at Philly, because being the 3 seed, they're going to go play the 2 seed. But I think they could go to Philly and beat Philly. I mean, the Eagles, especially, you don't know what they're going to look like, especially if Jalen Hurts hasn't played right. I mean, I think they're going to be a good team and be good, but I don't know, man. Philly lost to Tampa earlier in the year, and I get it was at Tampa. The Eagles were missing some guys, but I don't know, man. An offense that can score like that, it's definitely a team that I'd be scared of.
No, 100%. I definitely see it, and it's interesting. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure they exist somewhere, but I'm curious the numbers on like teams resting players like an Eagles and Rams that have the head coaches who have coached in the playoffs. I know that obviously it wasn't Sirianni who made the Super Bowl, who won the Super Bowl. It was who made the Super Bowl. He didn't win the Super Bowl, but like he made a Super Bowl. McVay obviously won a Super Bowl there. Like I'm wondering if like there are positive trends to resting that like veteran coach quarterback duo that has been there, done that, versus like resting like maybe even though Justin Herbert's played in the playoffs before. Like say Washington was like, nah, like we're cool with being the 7th seed, like we don't care, we'll rest Jaden Daniels. Like that's probably like would be like a massive botch considering the fact he's a rookie. But I wonder if it matters as much with like a Matt Stafford and a Sean McVay and like a Jalen Hurts and a Sirianni versus maybe a different duo that doesn't have that same caliber DNA, playoff DNA, and Super Bowl DNA. Probably just meaningless, but I'm curious if those numbers have to exist. I am curious if there is maybe a positive correlation or even causation there between having people who know what's good rest versus obviously you don't want to have somebody who's like new to the playoffs resting. That wouldn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I think for somebody like Kansas City, they've been there, done that. So
yeah, it doesn't matter. Like I don't know if the Rams and the Eagles technically, besides I mean they both have won. Again, it wasn't Sirianni who won, but they do fit that mold of been there, done that. So I don't know.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one. But I mean, I think for Kansas City, honestly, I'm interested. I think Kansas City's still a good number at plus 360 to bet them for the Super Bowl. I mean, presumably the path that they have, say things stand as is, and the Broncos are the 7 seed. They're probably Denver probably goes to Buffalo. Well, if Denver makes it, they're going to go to Buffalo. I think the Bills would win that game. Baltimore would beat whoever they play, presumably the Chargers. And Houston plays the 5, which is right now the Steelers. So I think in that case, then the lowest seed that wins would be Pittsburgh. Then that would be against they would go to Kansas City again. I think they win that game. Then all of a sudden they're in the AFC Championship game again. And then they're battling it out. Like the good thing about Kansas City, they're going to play the winner of Buffalo and Baltimore. So they're only going to have to play one of those games. So that's why I think realistically, you get them in the Super Bowl. You take a Super Bowl plus 360 ticket on them. They have to win a game against probably the 5, 6, or 7. I mean, the Chargers to me is a team that's probably going to be difficult for them. Unless Denver goes into Buffalo and beats them, they're not going to play Denver. The Chargers could be tough, but I think whoever they play in that wild card or that from the 5, 6, or 7 would be relatively winnable. And then, they beat, like I said, Buffalo or Baltimore in the divisional round, which honestly, I think it'll be Baltimore. I think Baltimore is just matches up very well with them. So really, you win one game, and then you're in the Super Bowl holding a plus 360 ticket, and you could decide what you want to do from there.
Yeah, I if you're talking to me about betting the Chiefs to win football games ever, especially in the playoffs, I'm never going to do you. Never.
Yeah. But that's it for us. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to us this regular season. We're glad to be of help to you. If we were, if we're not, drop a comment. Let us know how we can be of some help to you. And you'll see Breaking Bet with me, Johnny BTV, and Eric Pauly Slime Action next week for the Wild Card Weekend preview. E, thank you so much, my friend. Still alive?
Yeah, appreciate you guys. See you guys next week. And let's try to survive this final week of football. A lot of ugly football. We're gonna see a couple of intense games, but we're gonna have some fun wild card weekend. I'm sure for that. With lives are gonna be coming out a lot quicker as well, Johnny. So I'm sure we'll even have much more actionable props, plays, and maybe could have like a parlay or something for that weekend. That's gonna be fun because it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's gonna have the 2 Saturday games, the 2 Sunday games, the 1 Monday game standalone. I'm curious to see how they schedule it because there's some epic matchups. There's gonna be so much fun. Like if there's a Hardball Bowl, like that might get the Monday night. But then also if it's Commies, Bucks, that might get Monday night too. Who's not gonna watch Commies Bucks?
I might fly to Tampa for that. Who knows?
He's not gonna watch that. He doesn't want to watch.
Are we gonna fly to Tampa? If it's Bucks Commies, are we gonna fly to Tampa?
It's gonna have to be considered. That's gonna change a lot of things potentially.
Dude, I know, bro. Don't forget, I used to live there. I know every in and out of that city. So I got the best spots for us to stay, best places for eat, some late night activity. Just saying that might have to be arranged.
Might have to for sure.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Best of luck this weekend.
See you guys.